There was a version of me that dated men that could not hold me, men who wanted softness and someone to orbit their world around them, and not someone that was outspoken and bold and, felt all her feelings. Hi, I'm Fizah Pasha, an emotional mastery and confidence coach, the founder of Brule Beauty, and I'm here to talk to you about how I changed my dating patterns to attract people that are more aligned to who I am, and how I've let go of dating anxiety and therefore fatigue. For the longest time, I lived with the words, you are too much, you are too needy, you are too demanding in my head, going on over and over and over again. And so I would shrink myself and not show my true self to people that I dated. And it was because I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to be too much or if I'm going to be too needy, if someone says that to me externally, the thoughts in my head are going to get validated. And that place to live in is going to be so damn hard. And so I was basically attracting men that weren't really compatible with me. And I was chasing like the chemistry, the spark, and I would be like, okay, this person is like, they fit the bill and we have great conversation and we're so deep and there's this spark. And I'd be like, yep, this is the one for me. And then eventually things would come out and I'd be like, damn, this isn't someone that I want to be with, but I would stick around. And as soon as I would realize that this person isn't for me, I would start being like, am I too much? Am I expecting too much? Am I expecting perfection? And I started like invalidating everything that I was seeing in that person. That person might be a complete idiot, right? But I was like, no, it's me. I'm asking for too much. So I would stay in these dynamics, in these unhealthy dynamics, and I would shrink myself and I wouldn't speak up when I needed to. And I would just, get really, really anxious. Okay. And the pattern was that when I would get super anxious, I would start acting out of that anxiety, not because that person necessarily did something wrong, but because of how I was feeling. And I wasn't able to contain those feelings within myself, right? Because I wasn't showing up as who I was and I wasn't asking for what I wanted. And that eventually led to dating fatigue. And I know so many women that go through this. And it's usually because we are taught from a very young age to shrink ourselves or to, not be who we are or not ask for what we want, right? Look, your person, the one that's meant to be with you, the one that you're meant to do life with, is not going to run away from who you are. Now, I'm not saying be unhealthy or be toxic or be whatever, but be true to who you are and ask for what you want in a relationship, because that's what I started doing, right? So I really, really value honesty. Now, everyone says that, but for me, even if you're saying a little white lie, it triggers me, right? Because it triggers something from my past. Or if I'm not emotionally validated, I start getting really like anxious. So, that is something that if I meet someone, I tell them that, look, these are my two triggers. And, that's something that I'm working on, but I would like your help with this too. Because there's something that my mom always says to me. She says to me, look, Fizah, you can work on yourself and you can be the best version of yourself. But when you meet a romantic partner, the rest of the work that you need to do with that person, to do on yourself, is going to be with that person, because a romantic relationship triggers you in a way that no other relationship will trigger you, because it brings about your past childhood trauma. It takes you back to like fight or flight, the survival mode, right? So you want to be in a partnership with someone that will help you, that will elevate you, right? So you have to see that, is this person adding to my plate or taking away from it, right? And I started looking at things in this way now. So when I approach someone or when I go on a date now, I don't look at what like spark we have or what banter we have, even though like I'm the queen of banter and I love banter. But for me now, it's more about, are we compatible, right? Is this person going to validate me emotionally? I ask them certain questions. I give it time before I jump into a relationship because I see that is this person going to show up? Because eventually a good relationship is about two people that choose each other over and over again, because you're going to have your baggage and this person's going to have their baggage too. You have to see, and compatibility can show up in the smallest things. How you want to lead your life. Do you want to have kids? Where do you want to live? How often do you want to stay in touch? These are things that are super important to look at. So yes, chemistry is important, that, physical attraction is important, but what keeps a relationship going in the long term is that compatibility. Are you two compatible in the long term? And once you have that compatibility and you have very similar values and morals, then that relationship is more likely to work. And that's how I started approaching dating. So now if I see that I'm not really compatible with someone, honestly, it's easier for me to walk away from that person. And it's not because I've all of a sudden become heartless or something like that. It's because I no longer need to be validated externally. Because I'm like, if I don't validate myself and I don't feel like I am going to be happy in this relationship, I will show up anxiously. And that anxiety will cause me to do things or say things that are not really me. So what's the point of shrinking myself or acting like the chill girl or then, exploding later on? I'd rather be with someone and do life with someone that is compatible to me, and that in the long term, we're going to choose each other over and over and over again. So if you're in this dating fatigue, I'd love to speak to you about it. Comment below, subscribe, and tell me how it's been for you and how I can help you.